Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Resilient Voices. Today, resilient voices don't just come from politicians and leaders and business owners. It actually also comes from people who just have some passion in their hearts. Today, our featured guest, Dov Forman, is the winner of the Points of Light award that was given by the U.S. president and the British president. His great-grandmother is a Holocaust survivor that was awarded the MBE, which is a member of British Parliament, member of the British Embassy. Is that it? Empire. Sorry, just got to make sure it's an empire. And is the largest modern Orthodox TikTok account in the world, which right now we're facing big backlashes on TikTok that people are getting misinformation. And Dov is the leader right now combating that misinformation, talking up for Jews, talking up for Israel, talking up for humanity across the world. Dov, we're really excited to have you on. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know it was just your great-grandmother's 100th birthday, so congratulations to your great-grandmother, and love seeing all the success you're doing around the world. Can you give us a couple-minute background about you, how you got to where you are today? And I got a lot of questions for you.
Okay. Well, thank you. Firstly, a pleasure to be with you today. And thank you so much for inviting me on. As you say, I'm the great-grandson of an 100-year-old Auschwitz survivor who was born in December 1923 in a small suburban town in Hungary. She grew up as an Orthodox Jew, survived, and built a large, loving Orthodox family with now 10 grandchildren, 38 great-grandchildren, and one great-great-grandchild. And I'm one of those proud great-grandchildren. And since COVID, I've been working alongside my great-grandmother to share her story with the world. We first started on Twitter and then moved over to TikTok. And it's great that now we have a lot of followers online and millions of people. In fact, over 1 billion people have heard my great-grandmother's story and seen us online. But that's not the reason I started doing this. I started doing this simply so that I could record my great-grandmother's story, her testimony, her harrowing Holocaust testimony, and share it with the world. Because as time goes on, and we move further from the time of the Holocaust and the numbers of survivors continues to dwindle, it becomes more and more important that people of similar ages to you and I mean, I know that I'm probably a lot younger than you, but of younger generations begin sharing these stories, because we've seen that anti-Semitism is at an all-time high, and that the anti-Semitism that led to 6 million innocent Jews being murdered in the Holocaust, or to people being crammed into gas chambers because they were Jewish, didn't die with the liberation of Auschwitz or the other camps in 1945, but it's very much alive on our streets today, and there are innocent people who are being targeted just for being Jewish, like they were in the late 1930s in Eastern Europe. And so it's up to us, it's up to, I think, young Jewish people and Orthodox people too, to take a mantle, to take a step, to go on social media, to go out there with the world and to share our story. And so in recent months, since October the 7th, I've ramped up my work, whether that's going on more press, going to Israel, going to work with different governments and making sure our story and the truth is heard. But I've really been doing this since COVID. And so again, it's a pleasure to be with you today, and I'm looking forward to delving into this all a lot more.
Yeah, it's an amazing background. It's an amazing story. And you've only been doing this for a few years. So for the people who go, oh, everybody's already ahead of me, you did this in 4 years. Is that what I'm talking about? I mean, you've literally changed the entire Orthodox Jewish landscape around the world at the age of 16. So for the people who think that they can't do it, they can do it, and they can make a difference. We get a lot of people that say, you know what, you're bigger than us. You're successful. You can do it. Please stand up. Please keep going. And I say all the time, you need to keep going, because you also need to. You never know your voice and how it can resonate and who's actually listening until you start putting it out there. And it's really, really empowering, and it's really powerful. We need more resilient voices, and we need more voices like yours. So TikTok is one of the platforms that has gotten significant backlash because of the algorithm steering, I think, a little bit more anti-Semitic. What about the other platforms? So I know Stitch has a big problem right now with anti-Semitism across the gaming platform, which is huge for young people. I know that there's other platforms that also have enormous magnitude and is changing the way that the world looks at Jews. How are people addressing those platforms, not just leaving it, okay, just TikTok and just Twitter and just Instagram and Facebook? How do we get to these other platforms?
Well, look, I'll address a few things
before you go on to that. Just before you go on to that, though, I just want to also commend you, because, it's good for people my age. I just had my birthday yesterday, in the 60s, Yair's age even, but it's very important for people your age also younger than us to realize that there is a voice that, they can look at someone like myself or someone even like Yair and say, you're older, so whatever. It's really the young people that really have to know, and they're the ones I think that are subject to the highest amount of propaganda, and they need the ones that have the answers, and they need to see someone like your grandmother, to combat those, Holocaust never happened, Holocaust deniers. So that's even, more important in your age group to get your message out there. But
How come Israel is such a tech focused country, and the Jews are so innovative when it comes to technology? I mean, you look at Facebook, you look at Google, you look at all these other platforms, even the platform we're on today, Riverside. These are all Israel Jewish based companies. How come that we're losing the tech battle so badly, and how come we're not able to combat this with the geniuses that is in Israel and is around the
Well,
world?
look, I'll preface this just by saying that I don't work for the IDF. I don't work for the Israeli government. But what I can say is that this is a media world. This is a media war. This is a tech war, as much as this is a war being fought by the soldiers on the ground, both in southern Israel and in Gaza. Now, also, it looks like in the coming days, perhaps also in northern Israel and with Lebanon. And this is because this war, we know, is being funded by the Ayatollah and the IRGC in Iran. And they are paying millions of pounds, perhaps, into countries, investing into bots and into people, in social media creators from their side, who are peddling misinformation and lies, who are going on TV, who are having millions of followers online, and are putting out content which appeals to those who are Gen Z and perhaps even younger. And that way they've been able to kind of win over the world.
and that's been going on for years.
Exactly, and I think
They
that's
didn't
fading.
just start that. That's been going on for
That's
years.
a
I mean,
failure
they
of,
poured money into this. They recognize the strength of it, and they've been doing this for years.
and that's a failure of the Western world and also the Israeli government, that they haven't stopped this and that they haven't done the same, perhaps, which is just to show the beauty of Israel and to show that Israel's the only democracy in the Middle East. I mean, when you see things like Queers for Palestine, it really makes you think that they've not been educated properly, both in their own schools, but also that they're just being exposed to so many lies online. Because the only way you do that is if someone was telling you to be, if you were queer and that you kind of wanted to join something, that you should join it. But obviously, we know that if you were queer in Palestine, you'd be chucked off um, a roof within a couple of hours, probably, as they do with their own people uh, who identify as that in Gaza and other places across the Middle East, as we've seen. So, I mean, there's so many lies which are being peddled, and that all originates, at least from what I've seen, from the IRGC, from Iran, investing millions into these social media agencies and creators and news organizations who are just absolutely spreading lies. But on the other side, I think we do have a problem amongst Jewish creators and also Israeli creators, which is that there's no organization at all, which is, again, totally separate to the other side, which is they have hashtags which they all use, which they all push out. And that's why, again, it looks like they're being centrally funded.
So, Dove, you've learned some amazing lessons from your great grandmother, something that has taken you and changed your entire life. You will have grandkids, great grandkids, and you will have lessons that you've taken from today and that you will pass to the future. What is the lessons that people are taking now that they can pass to the future Jewish generations?
Well, I think the first thing is just firstly Jewish unity, Jewish pride, being proud of who you are, wearing a Magen David, wearing kippah out on the street, and saying that we're not going anywhere. Because despite all this hate, despite the fact that they want to get rid of us with, again, the same hatred that we saw on the streets in the 1930s and the same people staying silent like they did then, we've learned that we should be proud of who we are and that no one else is going to stand up for us. So we have to do it ourselves, and we have to use our platforms, we have to use our voices for good and to do the right thing. Because as much as we want people to stand up for ourselves, and often they don't, we need to realize that wherever we see hatred, we also should stand up for others. And I think Jewish people do that. We are, as we are obliged to do, to be a light upon the nations, and that's something which we have to do, and we have to use our strength to do that. So that's one thing, but also a message which I take from my great grandmother, a message of hope, which is that better times will come, and that there's always that smallest piece of light at the end of the very dark tunnel. And at times, life has been very dark recently since October 7th. Again, not only with the war in Israel and the hatred and the evil, the pure evil, which we saw on October 7th, it's also that which has been replicated on our streets across the world, across the Western world since. And so, whilst times do seem dark, we need to always realize that there is hope and that better times will come and that better days will come, but we also have work to do in that ourselves.
It's amazing. You've lost some followers, obviously, during this, and you've gained new followers. What are you going to do with the new followers that you have, and what do you feel about the followers that you've lost?
Well, I've lost over 200,000 followers on TikTok and Instagram since the start of the war. But the new followers, of course, welcome them all. And people often say to me, "How do you feel?" Well, I wouldn't want people who hate me anyway and who don't even want to listen, who don't care about the content I'm doing, following me. So I think, whilst it's obviously upsetting that some people felt they have to unfollow me because of the stuff we've been posting about the truth since October 7th, again, we welcome those who follow us for the truth since then, and those who have left can hopefully be educated by someone else.
And do you feel that people have been attempting to cancel you?
I wouldn't say cancel. I mean, I haven't been the target of a mass campaign, but people have been unfollowing en masse because they don't like the messages which we're sharing, and the messages we're sharing are simply only the truth. We're not sharing anything other than that. And so, if people feel that that truth is not what they want to hear, then I say good riddance to them, and I hope that they're educated at some point in their life. But I would prefer to not have people who are following me follow me than them just following me and spewing hate on every single one of my posts, which often they used to do.
Yeah, it's really scary. What I mean, you've been incredibly resilient during this whole thing. I mean, you were saying thousands of messages. I don't get thousands of messages a day. I get tens. And for me, I couldn't even care less because I know a lot of them are bots, and a lot of them are people that I'm not going to change their mind anyway. They would be right there in the Hamas tunnels just with everybody else. So I don't really care about that. But thousands of messages every single day is very serious for somebody who's 20. And somebody who's very serious, who's somebody who's growing and building his career and building his life. How do you handle that? How are you able to be so resilient through that?
Well, it's not easy, but I take, again, my strength from my great grandmother. My great grandmother went through the worst hell that's ever existed in probably the history of the world, the worst crime committed by man against man, a man made factory of death. When my great grandmother arrived at Auschwitz-Birkenau, she saw the smoke and the fire coming out of the chimney, and she said to someone who was there just a bit longer than her, "What factory is this? What are they producing here?" And the man who she asked said to her, "This is not a factory. That is your family being burnt, cremated, and gassed." And so, whilst however dark, again,
How old was she when she? How old was she when she got to the camps? How
my
old
great
was
grandmother
she?
was 20 when she arrived in the camps. She arrived with her mother,
She
three younger sisters, and youngest brother.
same age as you.
Exactly.
Same age as you are
Exactly.
now.
And so I take my strength from my great
Same
grandmother.
age as you are now.
Yeah, and I take my strength from her. The fact that she was able to go through that and continue and build a life and kind of have the strength to rebuild that life. Again, a large, loving Jewish family. She gave the family so much love. She very much is the queen of the family. She goes out, she educates, she speaks about what she's been through. This is someone with so much strength. So, despite the fact that I receive these messages and despite the fact that it's hurtful to read and receive, I take my strength from her and I say, if she could get through the worst period, then who am I to complain about what I get now? And I'm so lucky. I mean, along with millions of followers comes hatred. And I knew that when I started doing this. But I'm lucky that I have people who want to listen to us every day. And
Yeah,
actually,
that's a message. That's a message for all of us.
100.
That's a message for all of us. That's a message for all the Jewish people right now. That no matter what, you're right. Your grandmother, your great grandmother is amazing. What she went through, what they all went through. My great grandparents, my didn't go through that. I don't think, but it's a message for all of us just to be resilient and to remember what they can do to us, and that we should speak up and not be afraid of it.
Yeah. And on top of that, I mean, I'm overjoyed by the positive comments that we get every day. Jewish people across the world who say thank you for speaking up for us because no one else is. I mean, there are very few people. We can list on our hands, on probably our collective hands, 30 people of the top Jewish people who are going out every day sharing the stories. And it's a shame that we don't have more people doing it. It's a shame that we don't have more allies doing it. But because we don't, that's why I do what I do. And despite the hatred, that's why I'll continue to do what I do, no matter how many people want to annihilate us and want to destroy us and want to cancel us and want to unfollow and want our platforms to be silenced.
What do you think the new narrative should be for the Jewish people? What do you think our narrative needs to be to change the way that people view us?
Well, I don't think we need a new narrative. I think we need people to see what we are for who we are. I think we've been bad at selling who the Jewish people really are. We're a nation that love life, whereas those who we are fighting against value death. They want to see people die. They are overjoyed when people die. The Jewish people have so much dignity in life. We have so much respect for life, but we also have so much respect, by the way, for the dead. in ways that others don't. But I think we've been really bad at selling ourselves, both at selling Israel and selling how it's the only Western country sort of in the Middle East, but also at selling how much of a peace-loving nation the Jewish people are, and how rich our culture is and our heritage and our history. These are all things which we need to do better as a collective to sell to people.
I have one last question for you, and it's a hard question because it's going to come obviously from your great grandmother, but you've had this defining moment in your life that allows you to be so resilient. And it's not, yes, you could pull strength from your great grandmother. I understand that, but there's how many great grandkids does she have?
38.
50,
38.
38 great grandkids. That's a lot of great grandkids. So you're one of 38, and she has children, and she has grandkids, and now she has a great grandchild. Why are you the one of the family speaking up? And obviously, you have an unbelievable way of being articulate and being presentable, and you've got that good accent, so the girls must love you. But how do you? What is the defining moment in your life that taught you to be so resilient?
Very difficult question. I mean, I receive a lot of questions every day, and that's not one I've had for a while. Look, it's very difficult to answer. I think throughout Jewish history, people have had to adapt in new ways. Once they hated us because of our religion, they then hated us because of our ethnicity, they then hated us because we were so-called capitalists and then so-called communists. Now they hate us because of our nation state. And so every generation, Jewish people have to adapt, and so do individuals, at how they are resilient and how they combat hatred. And I'm not sure this is an actual answer to your question.
It's amazing. I love how you took a challenging situation and made it into something more amazing. And that's really the way when you say a Jewish light onto the nations, because light is with darkness surrounded. So you took a very dark time and brought light into the world, and it's so commendable, and it's so admirable of something like you. And one thing that my perspective is that pre-October 7th and during the Holocaust, we were tolerated. It was the concept of coexist. Okay, the Jews are in their corners and they're going to do their things. They're going to pay taxes and great, thank you very much. Now our life is very, very different. The Jewish people are very different now. Now we can actually stand up for ourselves. We're not asking people to come in and save us. And we say it all the time that yes, America, we love help. British, we love the help. But if you're not going to do it, we're going to do this alone, because it doesn't really make a difference. We need to stand up for ourselves. And that is what you're doing. You are standing up for yourselves. You are the new Jew, and you are the new advocate that has changed the world for the better. So we really appreciate what you're doing. Dov, we really want to thank you so much for coming on today, and we really appreciate it. Now, hopefully all of our listeners and all the people can find you. They can follow you, Dov Forman. They can also read your book or your great-grandmother's book called Lily's Promise, and how she survived Auschwitz and found this new world. And we really appreciate you and inspiring the younger generation to stand up and inspiring this new wave of Judaism that's saying we're going to stand up for ourselves. We don't need other people to come in and save us, but we're going to do it ourselves. And you're really the epitome of that. At age 16, you started this. At age 20, you're just going. I'm excited to see you at age 30, age 40, age 50, and you're someone who's going to change the world. So thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate you, and thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll see you on the next one.